I think there's value in the fact that people are welcomed who they are and where they are. There isn't a lot of pressure.
I'm Agnes Stowicki, Managing Editor with Our Kids. We're speaking with insiders from Canada's leading camps and kids programs. This is the Our Kids Insider Perspective.
It's a good question. So I have 3 children, and when we first moved to Ottawa, only my oldest was old enough to go to camp. And he had been to another camp before, and lovely camp, wonderful people. But what we found was when he came home, he was really overstimulated. And as much as he'd want to go back by the next year, like coming home was always a little bit stressful for him. And I knew Gracefield was a good fit for us the first year when he came home, and he was enthusiastic already about camp. So there was a good mix for him of sort of rest time, but also active events. And it was a better mix for him than the camp that he'd been to before. One of the things that I think is really wonderful that not a lot of camps have is it has a really robust canoeing program. So the staff there and even the LITs, they often get canoe certification training. So the kids get lots of time in the water, which is really wonderful. They learn how to canoe properly, which is great as someone who's not a canoeer but loves the water, to see my kids learn those skills. I think the other thing that makes Gracefield really wonderful is that they have this ability for reflection as well as high energy activities. So they do this kind of quiet time before breakfast every morning. There's this big rock that looks over the lake, and they go and because it's a Christian camp, they hear some scripture, and they're given a question to think about, and then they take a little bit of time before breakfast to think, and then they start their day. And I haven't heard of very many camps that start off that way, and I think it's really good for the kids. Absolutely. I think so I have 3 children. And so now the eldest is going to be on staff this summer, and the younger 2 are still in camp. I think last year, especially, so my eldest was in the LIT, the Leaders in Training program, and I really saw sort of development in terms of how he takes care of himself. It was really good for his independence and for his ability to kind of self-regulate in terms of when he's getting overstimulated and when life is good. Learning how to care for younger kids and support younger kids as they're learning. I think that's been really helpful for him. One of my younger ones has some pretty strong stage fright. He likes to do active things, but he doesn't like to be in front of people. And he's done what's called MAD Camp, so music, art, dance, and drama. He did that last year, and I really saw him start to come out of his shell a bit and do things that I think he may not have been comfortable with before that. Yeah, it's a hard thing. I think Gracefield does spend some time during their training, their counselor training, talking about what to do when kids are homesick. And I think the experience has been often the first night is hard, but it's hard for a number of kids. And then they're so active and they're so busy that they kind of get tired out of their homesickness. But it's really neat because you can email the camp, and they print out those letters, and then give them to the kids. So during mealtime, so you get a chance to have a connection with your kids if you want. Grandparents can send notes because it's email. You can do it from anywhere. Older siblings or whoever can send email to the kids. They get printed out, they receive them. So you can have that connection even though the kids are away. Gracefield also offers a day camp program, and they have campsites on the property. So if your child's not quite ready for overnight, but you want them to experience camp, then you can get a campsite or a trailer site if you've got a trailer, and have them in the program during the day, and then they sleep with you at night. And so they still get most of the program experience, but if they're not quite ready for overnight, you can see what it's like. But my experience has been the kids get over their homesickness pretty quickly. In some ways, I think it's harder for the parents than for the kids, but it's just so good for them. Just in terms of developing their independence and making friends. And I think it's worth the worry on the part of the parent for the good of the kids. So for me as a Christian mom, I value that they spend a little bit of time in scripture. But also, my kids have friends who are not Christians. And so I think there's value in the fact that people are welcomed who they are and where they are. There isn't a lot of pressure. Like if you're not a Christian, you don't have to suddenly become one while you're at camp. So there's a good message that gets shared. The other thing is it's completely screen free pretty much. Even the new STEM camp that they've developed is all sort of within nature and telescopes and things like that rather than on computers. And I think it's so valuable for kids to be away from screens. And they get so few opportunities to do that. So for them to be able to be out in nature and swimming and getting to do all these active things, I just think it's really good for them. So when they come home, they tend to be raving about the food, how tasty it is. They like to talk about the friends that they've made. They want to talk about when they're going back next year. My two younger ones have done the same camp every year because there are kids that come back and do that camp, and they like to see their friends and to have people that they know. So they have a lot of fun, and they're always really excited when it's coming up again. I do think one of the benefits of Gracefield that you don't see everywhere is it's a reasonably small camp compared to a lot of places. So the absolute busiest week of the year tends to be the first week. And even there's less than 50 kids at the whole camp. So, and some of the weeks there's less than that. There's maybe, 15 or 20 kids. And so it's enough to do like the big wide games, but it's also small enough that the counselors really get to know them. They have a little bit more say as kids in what they do, right? Sometimes they have some spare time between events and they let kids do things that they like to do. So it's very different from some of the bigger camps that way. And I think especially for kids who are maybe a bit more introverted, or, who need that quiet time, like my eldest son. I think there's not very many camps where you find that because so many of the counselors tend to be extroverts and they want kids to experience all of camp. So the schedules tend to be really busy. And I think Gracefield has a little bit more of a balance and an ability for some quiet, which at least for my kids has been really, really helpful.
For more information about this program, you can visit their profile at OurKids.net.